While the effects of climate change are easier to see on land, they're equally devastating off our shores. Ocean temperatures are increasing at alarming rates, threatening marine life.
And the most critical danger is faced by our coral reefs. They've been decimated, much of that die-off fueled by climate-related events. But researchers are racing to find solutions and save the Florida Reef Tract any way they can.
It's probably the worst coral disease outbreak that's ever been recorded.
We are losing corals at an unprecedented rate.
It started a few years ago, and it's like a wildfire burning through our reefs.
The state of the Florida Reef Tract is dire.
Our coral reefs are dying. Climate change, development, hurricanes, and pollution have been killing them. And now, disease.
The stony coral tissue loss disease has been ravaging the reef for the past 5 years, and it's affecting some of our most valuable species, the ones that build the coral reef that we rely on.
It's a disaster. You're seeing 500-year-old coral being chewed up. So this is stuff that's survived Columbus. It's a very visible phenomenon. The coral is white and sick, and it's, to me, it's just sad.
The disease causes the tissue of the coral to degrade and fall off, turning vibrant reefs white as they die. It's pushing corals closer to extinction, and scientists are rushing to get answers. For 2 weeks this summer, an expedition by a group called Ocean X used this cutting-edge research vessel to study 100 sites along the Florida Reef Tract.
The goal for the Ocean X mission this trip was to get a pulse on the reef tract from Biscayne all the way down to the dry Tortugas.
Researchers think the disease is caused by bacteria and spread through the seawater. It appears to have started in the Miami area and spread north to Martin County, then south through the Florida Keys, carried by the currents.
We take a syringe sample of seawater right above that coral because this pathogen is transmitted through the seawater. This is 50 milliliters. So right down here, about 1 milliliter, there are 1 million bacteria in 1 milliliter of seawater.
The Ocean X crew is also creating extensive 3D imaging to map much of the reef tract.
So what you want to see for a healthy coral colony is this brown tissue, but what we're seeing is the disease is all these white spots, and it's similar or synonymous to a forest fire kind of burning across the landscape or seascape.
To see the imagery that we've created and to go down and witness with your eyes corals that are diseased and dying is sad, because they are the foundation of this entire ecosystem, and they're a foundation for the tourism and economy in this area.
Warming seas and ocean acidification may have made it worse for corals by weakening their defenses.
As the environment changes, whether it's from global climate change or habitat degradation, that corals are becoming more vulnerable to disease infection because they're becoming more immune compromised. We hope that this mission will give us a big step forward in understanding what's going on, give us insights potentially into the pathogen, and the ultimate goal is to prevent it from getting worse and to prevent this from ever happening again.
How you doing, sir? Good to see you again.
As the scientists of Ocean X race to find answers, researchers at the University of Miami are racing to save corals before they get infected.
And the situation has gotten so bad that it's been decided that we should identify corals that are ahead of the disease outbreak and bring them into these land-based facilities to try to protect them from the disease while the disease outbreak goes through.
We've got 413 corals to go between these 3 tanks.
UM's Coral Rescue Operation is a collaboration with state and federal groups to save healthy colonies.
So one of our teams is our reconnaissance team, and they're out in the water always looking for that leading edge of disease. We've seen it spread linearly through the reef tract, so instead of popping up everywhere simultaneously, we've really seen it move in a pretty consistent fashion north and south. And so we have a pretty good idea of where that leading edge of the disease is.
Once the recon team finds where the healthy coral are, UM's rescue team dives into action.
We have 22 species of coral that have been identified for coral rescue. We had a team of 12 divers, and on average we could collect around 130 corals per day.
Once they are rescued, the corals are brought back to UM's hatchery.
From here, they will be stabilized, and they're going to stay here for maybe 4 to 6 weeks or maybe longer.
After being studied, cataloged, and nurtured at These corals are then sent to aquariums across the country for more specialized care.
During which time we will be developing our breeding and restoration strategies to take those corals back and continue the work here in Florida.
The plan is to replant the offspring of these corals back into the tract when it's safe.
So these are corals that are ultimately going to be the next set of parents that we hope will interbreed and will use their offspring, their babies, to reseed Florida's reefs. Each one of these colonies can produce thousands of individual coral larvae or babies that can actually grow up and become new colonies. And because these corals didn't see the disease, it means that all of that genetic diversity that would ordinarily be lost is preserved here.
We don't know when the disease will have run its course. In the meantime, we are still going to propagate some species and do some studies and put some corals out and test and see what their success is going to be to let us know when's the right time we can start. We do know that when it is time, we will be ready.
And the restoration of our reefs is a necessity for our safety, fish supply, and economy.
Those reefs are really important, not just for biodiversity reasons and because they're the rainforests of the sea, but they actually protect our coastlines from storms. Here's a situation where the natural resources are actually helping protect us from those threats, and yet we're not taking the necessary measures to protect them from the threats that we ourselves are creating. I think we have to realize that Miami has an environmental economy and it's worth money. Unless you value your economy, your environment, you're not going to have it available to be sustainable in the future. And so all of those things that we take for granted that sustain our essentially tourist economy are going to be lost.
We have this amazing asset, this amazing resource in the Keys, and it's our all collective responsibility to protect it. It's the only barrier reef that we have in our country. It's the main place for Americans to come and see coral reef, and we owe it to ourselves and the world to do what we can to protect it, and it's hurting right now.
Researchers have successfully spawned these corals in their land-based facilities and will continue to expand the scope of their efforts in anticipation of replanting them on our reefs when it's safe to do so.
And scientists are also genetically engineering more resilient corals that can handle and thrive in warmer waters.